Hi guys. Well, uh, this is something I've been wanting to start doing. So welcome to a new page here on my YouTube channel. Welcome to Alpha and Omega, where we'll be talking about either my top 10 or my bottom 10 things, or for a few things, maybe top 25. Of course, it's just my opinions, but I mean, hopefully you guys enjoy them, and hopefully you get to check out a few things, which is always great. So, today we're talking about werewolves. Yeah, werewolves. Specifically, werewolf movies. And there are a lot of them. And I've seen quite a few of them. I've actually enjoyed quite a few of them. Which is pretty insane. Now, the picture you just saw was of a Korean werewolf movie, which is basically two cops are dragged into a series of murders, brutal murders. I think in Korea. It's not something I've watched yet, but it's definitely something that's on my watch to-do list. And there are definitely a lot of werewolf movies out there that I enjoyed, and there are some that I completely hate. So definitely one I enjoyed from the UK that is on a lot of people's lists, surprisingly, Dog Soldiers. So this basically is a military group gets tossed into a forest during a war. As they're going through the forest, they find this house that looks abandoned. They stay in it because nightfall is about to approach. All of a sudden, one of their men is attacked by a werewolf creature. And it just escalates. Literally, I believe it's about a 24-hour, but the movie is about an hour something, but the whole idea is within a 24-hour period to the next morning of sunlight, werewolves take some of the men and change them into werewolves. Guns do nothing but piss them off more. The story was well written. It's very brutal. It's truthfully not scary. The creatures are a bit scary. Unfortunately, that will probably be my number 11. Cursed was pretty great. It was more of a comedy, to me at least. Like I said, there is a bunch of great werewolf movies, and there are a bunch of werewolf movies, or movies in general, that I've tried to block out of my head. I believe Blood Moon is another good movie. If it's it's what I'm thinking of, where a guy comes back from Europe who was actually bitten, but he doesn't realize he's been bitten or turning into a werewolf. Comes back to live with his sister. The dog notices the change and starts being aggressive to him. It's a pretty good story. Can't remember if it's called Blood Moon or Bad Moon. You know, I've enjoyed werewolves as well. One of the worst movies I've ever seen was Sci-Fi's Battle Dogs. Just insanely horrible. You know, there's movies that haven't been, that's not great, but surprised me is how interesting it became. I know, I can't remember the name, but there's a movie about this single mother and her son who inherits a cabin in a desert. The son gets bit, trying to protect the mother, but the town sheriff decides to put him in jail. Believing that the son is responsible for all the murders that's been happening. and we don't really see the son change until the very end, where he changes into a full wolf that resembles a dire wolf. It wasn't a very big film, but for what the money that was put behind, the writing was great. The they didn't really have a lot of CGs, so everything kind of, you seen the sun, then the camera turns to somebody else watching him change. Then it comes back to the change. It's definitely a pretty intense movie for the amount of money that they put into it. Wolves, Jason Momoa. So, love everybody that was in it, all the actors and actresses. The story, the idea was there. The writing sucked. The special effects was great. The outcome and direction of the film, horrible. It's one of those films, there's half of it you kind of enjoy, and half of it you don't. You find out that this kid is part of a lineage of werewolves, but the family decides to take him to another town. And then the night he understands that he starts becoming a werewolf and starts changing, his parents are killed, murdered, and he believes he's the one that did it, so he goes on the run, meets the actual person that did it, who was part of the pack that his mom and dad was part of, and took off. He basically pushes them to go towards the pack, which, if done correctly, would have been great. And the idea that a pack of bikers who's a werewolves run a tiny town is great. The story could have been great if it was done right, but it really wasn't. They dropped the ball. The ending fight between a werewolf out Jason Momoa and him, and the whole idea that after he beats the leader and most of the gang, he becomes the guardian of the town. It just seems hokey. That he's a werewolf. The whole town knows that he's a werewolf, and they're okay with him being their new leader. like I said, there's a bunch of great movies, and there is a bunch of movies that was just thrown out there. And then there's a bunch of not great but good movies, or at least entertaining. But as far as all of it goes, this is my top 10. 10 Skinwalkers. So yeah, Skinwalkers. Number 10. Basically the story is that there is a child that is born that is supposed to either lead the werewolves into a new millennium or destroy all the werewolves. He basically has the cure within him. He's the son of a single mother. Strange how most of this happens with single parents. But there is 2 packs of biker werewolves after him. One wants to save him. Most of them want to be cured. Those that don't want to be cured realizes he may be the one that could lead him in, or lead them into a whole new generation, a whole new millennium of greatness. Then there's the pack that wants to kill them, because they're afraid that if given the ability to live and humans find out that werewolves exist, they'll use him to kill all the werewolves. Special effects was pretty great. The action scenes was incredible. The story is pretty interesting, and it was pretty well written. Not greatly written, but at least good enough to be a good story. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, it seems very like a story that wouldn't be great or even good. But they did put quite a bit of money into it, to be fair. And it's pretty great. Definitely one of my movies that I did enjoy. I definitely love trying to go back and watch it over and over again. Kind of reminds me of not Falling, but the one that Michael comes to Earth, the angel, to protect a mother and her newborn kid from God's wrath and other angels. Legion? I think it was called Legion. It seems on par with that. So if you liked Legion, you'll probably like Skinwalkers. Number 9, Teen Wolf. So yes, Some people would say it doesn't belong, but it is a werewolf movie, and you can't really have the top 10 werewolf movies without Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf 1 and 2. Truthfully, I am definitely more a Teen Wolf 1 fan. Michael J. Fox. Great movie, great actor. Jason Bateman was a pretty good second, but you can't beat Teen Wolf 1. The whole basketball compared to boxing. I don't know if you guys remembered, but they also made a Saturday morning cartoon, I believe, if I remember correctly. It really didn't do so well. It is more a comedy, so I can see why it doesn't belong in this genre. But let's face it, it's a werewolf movie. And, that's why it's number 9 to me. It does belong in the list. And it is one of the more original takes on it. It's one of the most beloved werewolf movies. So it does belong in the top 10. It's just not in the bottom 5. Number 8, Project Metal Beast. So definitely not one on a lot of people lists. It is pretty old, I guess. Well, I mean, there are definitely movies people seen that's older. But it's definitely one of those movies that is I guess the word would be I don't know what the word would be. Uh, yeah, I can see it. Not a lot of people actually seen this movie. But to me, it was one of the earlier werewolf movies that I remember watching. Uh, the writing, of course, is mid 80s, late 80s. It was all right. It just seemed like they was trying to do something that they didn't know how to do. The effects was pretty insane. So the story of this movie is that I can't really remember how. I know it was a police detective was trying to catch a killer. They catch the killer, but he gets killed in the process, or at least they think he gets killed. They take him to the morgue. A secret laboratory buys dead bodies from this morgue to experiment on. One of the experiments is trying to create a super soldier. uh, yeah, it was sort of a Weapon X Captain America project, but it wasn't made by Marvel. It was basically they were using dead bodies to see how certain formulas work with living tissues. So they needed bodies that were not completely dead, where the heart might have stopped, but certain organs are still working. And one of the experiments was to see if they could take metal and replace skin. So they took this body and literally grafted off the skin and grafted on a skin like metal that was bulletproof. And it worked. Unfortunately, this body came back to life. And this body, or this killer, was actually a werewolf. Now, this is where I kind of don't understand, because I get, grafting metal onto body parts. We've seen it in comics. We've seen it on TV, bionics, whatnot. Although this wasn't really bionics, this was just grafting to see if it would work, to create something unimaginable, which they did. It came back to life. That is both a human and a werewolf. When it was a human, it looked like it was part cyborg with the metal plates in place for the human skin. But then when it transformed with the human to be more wolf-like. It's not the greatest movie, but the story that they were trying to create got me. The graphics and CG at the time looked pretty impressive. The werewolf creature looked insane, especially with the partly metal face and body, partly it's one of those you have to kind of watch. That's why it's my number 8. It will leave a very interesting impression on you. Even if you don't like it, it's one of those movies where you're still impressed by what they've done in the movie and just a bit scared of what this thing, if they ever did do, could do. I mean, it's a regular werewolf would be scary. But you can still stop a regular werewolf. Silver bullets, cutting off the head. Through myths, there's ways to stop a regular werewolf. This, on the other hand, where most of the creature's brains is covered by metal, bulletproof metal, where half the face, half the body, where nothing can cut through it. Yeah, it's a lot worse than you think it would be. Oh, Project Metal Beast. Number 7, Blood and Chocolate. Again, something that might not belong, or people might say might not belong in this list. But yeah, my number 7 is Blood and Chocolate. It's not a horror film, it's more of a thriller. It's more of a love story. Where a guy goes to Europe, Romania, falls in love with a girl whose family is literally the head of the werewolves in Romania. I mean, it just feels like that's the werewolf genre. It's either one, a horror film, two, a survival film, battling to survive, or three, some kind of love story that's not supposed to exist. It has been a while since I've seen this movie. And if I recall, there is no halfway transformations. It's basically humans or wolves, or humans that could transform into wolves and back. Which is something that's not normally done. But the story was great, well written. Uh, it just, it was well done. I loved it. It's a bit slow in the beginning, but it definitely caught up and made you feel what was supposed to be meant to be felt. So uh, I definitely try to push this film as a top werewolf film. Number 6, The Wolfman, the remake. Well, being about werewolves, you know that a version of this had to actually come into this. I have seen the original Wolfman. For the time it came out, it was pretty great. Out of all of these old school monster films, though, I like the Creature from the Black Lagoon better. But it was something about this remake that just blew my mind. The story and the writing was insane. It was so good. The special effects, the acting, everything was perfect to tell this story. The atmosphere was definitely Old English and dark. And then the twist at the end. As far as looks go, I mean, we've seen better werewolves. We've seen crappier werewolves. But the actual story, it leaves me speechless. It's hard to really put into perspective. Then, of course, the newest Wolfman came out. So it's not horrible. It was good. A good story. Writing was not great. Acting was there. The suspense was there. It felt like the entire thing was horror until you got to the end where it switched to drama. And it wasn't a good ending to me. You definitely felt sad, but it just, for me, it left me not complete, not satisfied, not like this reboot. Which is insane. It does seem like it holds the patterns of reboots of it going on a downward hill. But that's just me. Number 5 is The Wolf. So this freaking movie was insane. That's why it's number 5. The Wolf. Jack Nicholson is a great actor. Michelle Pfeiffer, I think she was the main actress. But it was insanely intense from beginning to end. It was a serious roller coaster ride of emotions. And that's something you can't get in a lot of movies, especially werewolf movies. Was it a horror film? Honestly, no. It did feel like The Shining, but it felt more drama filled. More of this love story, love and hate build. It's definitely a must watch, at least once, to experience this. Especially Jack Nicholson. Truthfully, I would have loved taking The Shining, taking this movie, and putting them together to get a better version of Joker from Jack. Don't get me wrong, I love Jack's Joker. To me, Jack's Joker was taking Cesar Romero's Joker and taking it to another level. But I think if we got this combination of characters into Joker, I really don't think any Joker would be able to touch Jack's Joker. The insanity of The Shining, the intensity of Wolf, with the pure comic and chaos of Joker. But Jack delivers a feeling so intense that it doesn't matter what any of the actors or actresses does. Because you're already feeling what you need to feel from Jack. Trust me, if you haven't watched it, watch it. It's worth it. Number 4 is Ginger Snaps. Alright guys, we're down to the last 4. And number 4, Ginger Snaps, was it was pretty amazing. Definitely has become a cult classic. you will see it on a lot of people's lists. The only problem I had with the movie was number 3. So number 3 is... So the entire thing of the movie is that one of the girl's sisters gets bitten, starts turning into a werewolf, and the other sister is trying to hide her sister, protect her sister, and do whatever she can for her sister. And 2, we believe that the werewolf sister was killed. The normal sister is sent to an institute to try and help her get through everything she's been through. But the institute gets attacked by a werewolf. And then in the third movie, it's actually a prequel. It goes back to the time of colonization. So I would say the great grandparents. But it's basically the 2 sisters again. Same name, same 2 sisters. So it's like they went back in time, but basically it's supposed to be their relatives. I think it's the only place they could have gone. It was a pretty good story. Despite its shortcomings. But the first original Ginger Snaps one will live in many people's hearts. It was surprisingly well thought out, well written. I wouldn't say the best acting in the world. The sisters are great, or the girls that played these sisters are great, but it wasn't anywhere close to what you think of as a AAA movie. At best, Ginger Snaps would be a B-rated movie. But it's definitely worth checking out. I enjoyed the first film. I enjoyed the second film. I can even say I enjoyed the third film for what it was. It is a good series for werewolves fans. I've seen worse. Silver Bullet is number 3. So for me, my number 3 on the list is Silver Bullet. Stephen King is an amazing author, writer. And like most movies, a few things were changed in the movie to make it, I guess, more watchable to movie audience. But the horror is in this movie. The build-ups was on point. It is the third film that scared the crap out of me as a kid. The special effects was amazing. The werewolf looked insanely realistic. The idea that a kid in a wheelchair is the one that saves the town, though. Truthfully, not believable since it's a werewolf, but I mean, what a concept. Show me a lot of films that would make a either physically or mentally handicapped person the main star and the main hero of the story. There's really not much out there. And the fact that I can't remember if it was the uncle or the grandfather that made that special wheelchair for him, which allowed him to go faster than a normal wheelchair. The idea of most of it happening in this small town where it's surrounded by woods gives it a very true feeling that it could be possible, that there is something that could be hiding in the woods that's not normal. And I think Hollywood does a pretty good job when it comes to translating Stephen King's books. I mean, most of the books that translated to movies, most of the movies are pretty frightening. It, Sleepwalkers, Cat's Eye, Pet Sematary. For me, the remake of Pet Sematary wasn't great. It didn't hit as well as the original. The remake for it was it had its ups and downs. Although I think the clown Pennywise was a lot more scarier in the remake. But the original looked actually like a person in a clown outfit, which is what made that scary. Bless me. But yeah, I love Silver Bullet. It has to be on my top 3. Number 2, An American Werewolf in London. Alright, number 2, A Werewolf in London. So honestly, I like the second movie, A Werewolf in Paris, a lot more. I think the story was a little bit more entertaining and enjoyable. Although the writing, I think, is a bit more, or a bit less than the original movie. And I do think the original movie was a lot more horrific than the second movie. So I think the first movie, the transformation to werewolf, was amazing. The special effects was insane. The second movie, honestly, I like the spirits, the ghosts of the dead friend, a lot better than I like the original Ghosts of the Dead Friend. And like I said, I enjoyed the story a lot more. But this is number 2 because literally this was one of the werewolf movies that gave me nightmares. Any other werewolf movie I was alright in watching, but 1, 2, and 3, oh, I could enjoy it. It gave me nightmares. And there is no werewolf movie list that can't have this movie in the top 10. Top 5. I think London was a great background to the story. Paris, unfortunately, wasn't as great. I do think a better backdrop would have been Romania. But England, UK, back then, imagine having a huge creature running around. And I think that's what gets me with most of these movies is forests I love because there's places to hide. In the city, there's no place to hide. Except maybe in the sewers underground, but still, you'd be able to see this thing running through a field or something. It was beautifully written. For the most part, the acting was great. It did not have me believing that a werewolf exists, but it did have me believing that something could do this. It is worth the second spot. Especially if you combine London and Paris. as a as the original and a sequel. I kind of wish they continued, because if at the end of Paris, I believe both the guy and the girl was still werewolves. And they came to America, so Werewolf in New York would have been insane. The same story, just different city. I think that's the only thing that would have made it better, if it was the same characters from London coming to Paris for the sequel. The same family, at least. I don't know if it's the same family. I don't think so. It's basically the same story, though. But the first movie, London, oh, the feelings of fear from that movie and how they created certain things is definitely on the top of this list. Number 1 is The Howling. So we're finally down to the final one, and yes, it is The Howling. So there are several movies to The Howling, and a reboot to The Howling. In general, the reboot was okay. It didn't feel as brutal or horrific as the original. So to me, it wasn't, it didn't feel like The Howling. It just felt like somebody decided to buy the name. But this movie, this series of movies, was the epitome of werewolves in theaters. I think I liked all of 1, 2, and 3. I'm pretty sure there was a 4. I think that was good. I can't remember how many movies there was. I think it went up to 5. 4 or 5. Then it did a rebirth. Did a couple after that, and then I think did a reboot. And the rebirth was alright, but it just feels like the original series of movies is the top of what werewolf movies are supposed to be. It's supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be leaving you not wanting to go in the woods or walk in a park alone. I can't remember. I know one was in a desert town, though. And for some reason, they made these werewolves a bit taller than normal werewolves. So the look of them just was ghastly, just was very disturbing. They didn't look like a healthy werewolf standing on two legs, which made it even worse. The howling, the original series literally would keep me up as long as possible when I was a kid. Do they do that now? Not really. But the the damage it's done to my mentality of werewolves and fear. It's made a lasting impact. Do I fear werewolves now? Truthfully, I don't think I've ever feared werewolves, but I feared the damage that it could do to people, to things. I feared the curse of what a werewolf is. But now that I've read books, understand a little bit more about certain things, certain cultures, I don't think werewolves are to be feared as much as respected and left alone. There are definitely worse things to fear, especially in forests. And there are different aspects of a werewolf. That I've kind of learned a little. That a actual werewolf that has been passed down through heritage, the human may still have some control over the beast, while the cursed werewolf, the beast has more control than the human. And of course, then there's always the walkers, the skinwalkers, the spirit walkers from Native American history, myths, legends that aren't werewolves, but at the same time could be mistranslated as a werewolf. Ooh, sorry. I mean, there are definitely other ideals out there when it comes to myths and legends of werewolves. There are a ton of great movies. There are a ton of crappy movies. this is my list of my top 10. My opinion. Definitely, hopefully, it gives you guys some ideas to actually look up and watch some of these if you haven't. Most have, most have, most of these are on people's lists. There are a few that I'm pretty sure people forgot existed. But that's why I'm making this list. So I hope you enjoyed Alpha and Omega. My first real drop into this. It's definitely not going to be one of those things that I do weekly. It's taking a little bit to do this, but it could definitely take up a spot of a place in one of the my 2 days, especially once everything is unboxed. Definitely hope it helps a lot of you. Makes you want to check out certain movies. I could actually do an Omega version of this, the top worst werewolf movies. We'll see how it feels. But I hope you enjoyed this. At least enough to say that you enjoyed it, or maybe at least enough to take a deep dive back into nostalgia a bit. We do have a lot of things lined up coming. As I said, this is definitely gonna be my top and bottom tier list for movies, for books, for video games. So I hope you stay tuned. I hope you get excited for this series. We'll see you soon. Aloha.